Most students skip goal setting because it feels like a pointless exercise. But the truth is, the students who get grades 7 to 9, they all have one thing in common. They know exactly what they are working towards and exactly how they're going to get there. Now, if your child is in year 11, now is a crucial time for them to set goals to help them aim for the grades that they want in the summer. If your child is in year 9 or year 10, even better, setting goals now is going to give them massive advantage by the time they get to year 11. Okay, so over the last 15 years as a teacher and as a tutor, I've seen so many students put in hours of revision and hours into content, but didn't get the results that they hoped for. Why? Well, that's simply because they didn't have a clear plan. And that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit more in today's video. Now, a habit that I developed many years back was to plan my meals in advance as much as possible. So develop the habit of planning my meals in advance as much as possible. But recently I got out of that habit. I guess I'll tell myself that, I just didn't have enough time or I was tired and so on and so forth. And what I realized was that everything was taking longer. I spent longer to make my meals. I would forget ingredients and I had to go back out and buy them again. And more importantly, um, my work that was supposed to be my productive hours um, took longer. So if I was supposed to be if I had scheduled in an hour to work, maybe I will do 40 minutes, maybe even 35 minutes. So the result was that I was unproductive. Now, did I reach my goals? Not really, or at least not as much. So just that one tiny practice affected everything. And this is why goal setting is so important. And it is the same when it comes to our students. It is the same for our GCSE students. If our students don't set goals, then they don't have anything to aim towards. And if they don't have anything to aim towards, then they're not going to be motivated to take the right action. And because they're not motivated, then that's going to lead to poor results, right? Um, and if they get poor results, then that's going to lead to low self-esteem. And that cycle is going to continue over and over again. And ultimately, it's going to lead to mediocre grades in the main GCSE. Now, flip it around and think about, well, if they actually plan goals and they have the right goals, then that means they have direction, they have focus, they have motivation, and they now have a clear path to achieve grades 7 to 9. Now, before I dive into this step-by-step process on how to set goals that actually work, how your child can set goals to help them to achieve grades 7 to 9, I've actually put together a free resource to help your child achieve grades 7 to 9. It's called 3 Simple Steps to Achieve Top Grades in GCSE Maths and Science. And I've linked that in the description down below. So just check that out in the description down below. Okay, so let's jump into those steps. How do you set goals? Now, the first thing is you need a vision. You need to create a clear vision. The vision is that bigger picture of what you want and why. What you want and why do you want this? Why do you need to do this? So, your child needs to think about, if you're a student watching this, you need to think about, what are my bigger goals? Well, for instance, a specific career. I want to study medicine, or I really want to go into this university, or I really want to go into this STEM college, for example. Much of what I'm talking about, by the way, in this video, came from a book that I read called The 12-Week Year. So if you have a chance, I'd highly recommend reading that book. But if not, the key information is going to be in this video. Now, in that book, it talks about your have, your do, your be. So when you're creating your vision, thinking about what you want to have, okay? What does a child want to have in the future? What do they want to do? Okay, so this is where we're talking about, okay, what's a specific career and what do they want to be? Thinking of your have, your do, and your be would really help to create that bigger vision. Now that we've got a vision, we move to step two, and step two is to create clear goals. Now, one of the key things with creating clear goals is to make sure that there's a deadline. So think about that SMART process. So a clear goal could be something like, well, I want to get a grade 9 in maths, biology, and chemistry by June 2026. Or I want to secure a place at this sixth form college by this date. Or I want to be enrolled in an apprenticeship in engineering by September 2026. So these are examples of goals. Now we have a goal, right? So what I talked about just now are the bigger goals. We do need smaller goals to help us to reach these bigger goals. And these smaller goals are called milestones. So step three for your child is to set milestones. These are the smaller goals to help us to reach those bigger goals. So what would an example of a milestone be? Well, if earlier we said, well, I want to get a grade 9 in this subject by June 2026, then a milestone would be I want to get a grade 7 in this subject by the end of my next mock exam in February 2026. Can you see how that's a smaller goal to help us aim to get that towards that bigger goal? And then by February to your exams in May, you now still have 3 months to then work towards that bigger goal and move from a grade 7 to a grade 9 as an example. Another milestone could be get better at trigonometry by the end of the month, maybe be a bit more specific in terms of what you're struggling with trigonometry. Master 6 mark questions in chemistry, right? So you may have found that, okay, my goal is that I want to get a grade 7 in chemistry, but what I realize is holding me back is those 6 mark questions. So master those 6 mark questions, or raise your score in graph questions for physics, for instance. So milestones are those monthly targets that help us keep those momentum, monthly or termly targets that help us keep those momentum. Now that we have our milestones, smaller goals, we move to step 4. And this is where the game changer starts to really come in, because this is where we set actions. So I would say this is really the part that, start to change everything in this, because it's all about taking consistent daily actions. So what are those actions could be? It could be spend 20 minutes daily revising these topics Monday to Friday, right? Note that I've said 20 minutes daily. I haven't said an hour, because if you know how to revise effectively, then you don't need to spend an hour on what you're revising. Okay, if you know what you're going to revise, you don't need to spend an hour. It could be practice exam questions on this topic and check the mark scheme once a week, right? For 30 minutes weekly. Okay. It sounds small, but it's going to add up. Or it could even simply be ask my teacher when I get stuck. These are the actions that you need to take. These are the actions, if you're a parent watching this, that your child needs to take. Now, an even bigger game changer that really links well with these actions is tracking. Now, this sounds really, really complicated, and it sounds like it's not a lot of work, but tracking makes a massive difference. So I'm just going to talk about why tracking is important, and I'm going to show you an example of what I do when I track, just so we can see just how powerful this is and how powerful it will be for our students. So if we don't track, we don't have any accountability. We just say, yeah, I'm going to revise for 20 minutes every day. But do we do it? No, right? We haven't tracked it. Also, we tend to revise what we feel comfortable. So if we haven't tracked, I'm going to revise trigonometry, or I'm going to revise rates of reaction, then we just go open up a book and go, oh yeah, I like cells. I'm going to revise cells. Okay. But also, you get a false sense of progress. You think, well, I did study today. I did open up my book today. I did watch YouTube today. So I'm learning, but you're not tracking. So you don't really know if you are progressing. So you get a false sense of progression. You think you're progressing, but you're not. All right, now this is the fun part that I want to share with you. I want to share with you an example of tracking. Okay. So this is this I did this at the start of this year, actually, at beginning of January. And this I think I had about three goals here. These are where it's got your goal, tactics, it just means actions. These are the actions. Um And then I've written the actions underneath the goals, right? So I didn't write what the goals were here. You can't see that here. I wrote that somewhere else. But these were my actions. So if you look, you can easily see that my actions, my goals was all to do with like health and well-being and all of that kind of thing. So I would write, okay, I'm going to walk 30 to 45 minutes every morning. I'm going to walk 45 minutes. You can see how I've even split it up. I'm going to work 45 minutes to an hour at this specific time daily. I'm going to eat only 3 meals a day. I'm going to finish eating by 5 every day. And then I have another goal here, and this one is like, daily stretching, breathing, and so on and so forth. So those goals are categorized. But by taking the time out, so I've got Monday to Sunday, so SS Saturday, Sunday. By taking the time out to track those goals, I can then sort of have a look. So for instance, I could say, so I think I put 3 here because I've said eat 3 meals, right? As an example. But I could say, if I look at this first one that says eat a sweet treat only on the last Friday of every month, I did a great job with that, right? Because I have 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. But finish eating at 5 p.m., I was really rubbish at that, right? There's a lot of zeros. There's a lot of, not very good. And you can see here on the right-hand side, I only accomplished that 29%. And this is why goal tracking is so important because it shines a spotlight on what you're doing or what you're not doing, and you can't really run away from it. And then I can have a look at that and go, ooh, okay, I really need to work on that. So when we're tracking goals, we really want to aim for 80. I mean, I would say none of these. I mean, these are green, so it's showing that they're okay. The orange is a bit amber, but 80% is what we want to aim for. And if we have a tracker like this, um, you know, that your child has put down, that we've put down in terms of revision, and we're hitting that 80%, then there's no reason why we cannot achieve our goals. Um, so this is one of those things I'm really passionate about because, as I said before, when I've worked with parents and students, it's all about, you know, more lessons and more content, but then they get overwhelmed because they're not planning and they don't have goals. And so the actual actions they're supposed to be taking, they're not taking those actions because they don't really have that goals and they haven't planned it and they're not tracking it. Okay. So this is why goal planning is so important. And with tracking, you get a clear idea of your progress. It motivates you. You get that sense of accomplishment. You get that, oh, I did 70% in that. Fantastic. Helps with that confidence, and it reveals where the gaps really are. Okay, so now that your child knows how to set clear GCSE goals, and if your child watching this now that you know how to set clear GCSE goals, the next step is we need to know how to create a timetable that we can actually skip to, um, a timetable that we can actually stick to, sorry. Check the video that's going to be showing up in a minute, and you'll learn about how to create the best GCSE revision timetable. Okay, that's all for now. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.